What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our prediction show where we're going to try to break down what we think might happen as the Riverhounds travel to Detroit for their first Jagermeister Cup match ever. I am Mike Sparks. Joining me is Justin Ashcraft. Justin, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's been a good week, and Jagermeister Cup. Let's go. Let's do it.
It feels, we're gonna get into it. It just feels new and fresh. And I saw there's some people that I follow online, and they were talking about how their teams haven't necessarily hit the ground running the way they had hoped, but they feel like the Jagermeister Cup is like this opportunity to kind of do a hard reset. It's a whole nother competition. Just from a mental standpoint, like maybe it's hitting at the right time. So we will see. We'll get into all of that. First, lots of news coming out, both from more from the Riveters than from the Hounds. But the news from this past week, I did get a chance to sit down with Jorge Garcia, who was up for goal of the week. Unfortunately, he didn't win. Did join me for the pregame and episode. So if you've not listened to that, make sure that you go check that out. Justin, I don't know if you had a chance to catch that, or if you have any thoughts about what Jorge had to say.
No, I thought it was good. I thought it was fun to hear from him, and just like even his thoughts on the goal. And it was like it was kind of a split second decision, but once I saw the top corner of the net, I thought I might as well try, and luckily it went in. My other just like funny thought was you can definitely tell the players who have had more media experience than others.
Yes.
You can tell Jorge was a little like, oh, I don't know about this whole media thing. But it was fun to hear. It was fun to hear his thoughts.
Yes, agreed. It typically takes everybody sort of an episode or two with us, and then they like chill out and they're relaxed, and it just becomes more conversational. But seems like a great guy. We talked a lot off air. I thought the one story that was really funny was I asked him if he was pointing at the team after he scored, and he was like, "No, actually, these guys are making fun of me, so I was pointing at them instead." And I was like, "Okay, you could have just said you were pointing at the team, but yeah, we'll give another shout out to those guys. So good on you."
Yeah.
What will be interesting, and we'll touch on this a little bit, was he did kind of allude to the fact that the Jagermeister Cup is a good opportunity for some guys who may not get minutes to get some minutes, and whether or not we actually think that's going to happen in this case. But there might be some foreshadowing there as to what we can expect in Detroit today. But first, let's talk a little bit about the Riveters. A couple of things have happened since the last time we talked. One, the Riveters won the best new crest in the USL. So great. Or USLW more specifically. There were a couple of other teams that were up for it. I'm not entirely surprised. As we've talked about, the reaction behind the Riveters crest has been pretty significant. I know initially there might have been a little bit of backlash, but I think overall everyone has really sort of latched on to it. I know I have it as a magnet on the back of my truck. I love parading it around. So yeah, good on them for winning that. In addition to that, they announced their promotion schedule for this season. I guess just sort of running through the dates. They're going to have a commemorative centerpiece giveaway on opening night, a fundraiser fest and ladies' night at AHT, which includes half-price Surfside cocktails. They're having a whiteout weekend whenever they play Buffalo at home on Sunday. That is also going to be the same weekend that the Hounds play Detroit at home on Saturday. So you'll have back-to-back opportunities to watch the Hounds on Saturday, Riveters on Sunday. My question for you real quick is the fact that they're alluding to it being a whiteout. Typically when they do that, they release a third kit right around that time. Our second kit for the Hounds right now is kind of predominantly white. Do you think that we're going to get a third kit that might have more white in it than the second kit?
I think it would be interesting if they would do something with the blue and red that we've been talking about a little bit, of doing like a primarily white kit where the Riveters kit has some touches of red, and the Riverhounds kit has some touches of blue. I think that would be really cool, and kind of a nod to the past, and like kind of the unique color in the team's color games. And so I do think that would be fun. I would kind of doubt that we get that. I would kind of doubt that's our third kit season. But who knows?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was you or somebody had floated the idea of it would be really cool if the third kit for both teams were the exact same kit. So like they wore the same kit and the only thing that would be different would be the crest. So that could make for a really cool, fun weekend if they end up doing that. The two other promotional nights that are wrapping things up on June 15th, they're going to have STEM night and a 3D puzzle giveaway. And then June 27th, which is the last regular season home game, is Soccer for Everyone featuring post-match fireworks. That's going to be against Steel City FC. That game is going to be huge. It's going to be standing room only, packed. I expect both teams to really be competing. That circle that date on your calendar. In addition to, obviously the inaugural game, but that's going to be a big one. Anything there jump out to you, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just super excited about the season overall, and I think they're doing some fun stuff that I think will cater to families and people who want to show up to these games. And so I think it's just it's fun to like think about like, oh, these are the five home games. And the rivet, as we get close, like every piece of news that comes out, everything like this that drops, it's like, oh, this season actually is happening. Like it's not we've talked about having a women's team for years. It's like, oh, this is actually going on. And so like Laura Ellen and we're coming out the weekend of the 30th and 31st to catch the double that weekend. And so, in addition to a half price Surfside cocktail, I'm excited to see both games and get a chance to watch the Riveters in person.
Yeah. They also dropped some news. I think we got 5 new signings since the last time we talked. And I mentioned to you, and I'm curious on your thoughts, that it just feels like they just keep adding players now. And I know that you've been doing some digging into sort of the roster construction and where you think we might be just in terms of personnel. And I know a number of these players are kind of fluid in that they can play multiple positions, but I'm just curious your thoughts on sort of the size of the roster at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I started like one of the women they signed this week just graduated from Penn State, after a 4-year career there, and then they had another one who spent years at Marl and then did a year post grad work. And so like these are some experienced players that I think will give us some experience on the field and time on the field, which is really good. The size of the roster, I actually did a little bit of digging today, and on my day off, trying to figure out like, is this size pretty normal? Last year, looking at Racing Louisville's W League roster, we had 32 players on the roster, and we have 30 right now. And I was trying to think, well, why do they do that? And then I looked. So the 10 regular season games happen in a stretch of 42 days. So from May 16th to June 27th or whatever it is, 42 days. So it's literally a game every 4 days, essentially. Some of those are more spread out. It's essentially a game every 4 days, which is essentially the World Cup or Olympic kind of turnaround on games. Like that's typically a World Cup between games you're playing every 4 days. But that tournament, you're only guaranteed 3 games in that tournament. And so we have 42 days playing 10 games. That's a lot of minutes and a lot of games and a lot of time playing. So I did ChatGPT did a little bit of help for me of trying to figure out the max number of games the Hounds play over the course of 40 days. And their max is 7. And it's mid-July through the end of August. They play 7 games. And really, nothing's added there. If they advance in the Open Cup, it'll actually be before that stretch. If they advance in the Jagermeister Cup to the knockout rounds, it'll be after that stretch. And so there's nothing added there. It's 7 games, and there's not a chance that we play another one. So I think that's really interesting and kind of puts some perspective on how quick this season actually is and why there's probably so many players on the roster.
Yeah, that 2 months is going to blow by. And so it will be really interesting as we're trying to look at and predict what's going to happen. First of all, it typically always takes us at least a game or two to really even understand who, in this case, Scott is going to want to roll out in starting positions. But if there's that much rotation, like every game could be, a new starting 11, barring, maybe you have 5 or 6 people that play regularly and you're just getting those numbers in. And so it will be interesting. I think we're going to be exposed to a lot of talent this year, and we're just going to have to be used to the fact that, like you said, over the course of the 2 months, we might just see some of these women play 3-4 times. and that's really just to try to keep everybody fresh, get everybody minutes, make sure they're all contributing, and sort of see what you have. So yeah, exciting times for sure. Like it's going to be here, and it is here quicker than I think any of us were expecting. But it's great. So yeah. Let's talk about Detroit. As we mentioned, the Jagermeister Cup. So for those who don't know, the way that this works is this is not a regular season game that we are playing today. This is a separate tournament that's being played between teams within USL League One and the championship. So it's kind of like the Open Cup, but in a lot of ways it's not. This week we play Detroit. Then we're going to face Rhode Island in May, followed by Westchester in June and Portland in July. One of the interesting things is there's no draws. So if this game ends in a tie after 90 minutes, there's no extra time. They go directly to a shootout. So in terms of like, what does that mean? Well, basically the top team in each group will move on to sort of a single elimination style playoff. The two best second place teams within each group will move on, and it's all done on points. So if you win within the first 90 minutes, you get 3 points. If you win on penalty kicks, you get 2 points. And if you lose on penalty kicks, you get 1 point. Otherwise, you get 0. So really, you got 4 different options right now, as opposed to in a regular league game, it's 0, 1, or 3. You can get 0, 1, 2, or 3, which will be interesting to sort of watch how this develops and sort of the scenarios that we put ourselves in, where we might be cheering for somebody to go to a shootout but lose. We'll just have to wait to see how it works out. My question to you is, do you prefer this structure where you kind of have the group stages followed by a single elimination, or do you prefer a style like the Open Cup that is just single elimination start to finish?
I like the style in the group stage of going to a shootout, because I think for a lot of these teams, especially when you get down to the League One level, like it's still much a developmental league and a developmental place to play. And those guys are not going to get that many opportunities to take PKs in a pressure situation. So I love the fact that it's like you either win in regulation or you go to a PK. And not like you're not taking you're not putting an extra 30 minutes on the clock. You're not running these guys down. And so I do think like all of that is really, I think it's really fun. And I think this style of tournament, especially it being like a mid-season tournament, does make for some exciting stuff. And so I'm excited to see how it plays out. I don't know, like these are kind of distinct tournaments. And so I feel like if the Open Cup was played in this style, I wouldn't like it, because there's so many more teams. There's 100+ teams at the beginning of the tournament. And you're bringing the teams in stages too. And so I don't think I'd love it in that context, but in this context, where it's like a set number of teams, Championship League One, it does make it exciting to kind of play in this realm.
Yeah. The shootout thing is definitely interesting. I think it could level the playing field just a little bit, at least in terms of you would expect the championship teams, in theory, to probably have a more experienced bench that might be more impactful. So the later you get in games, that's where championship teams might have a leg up over the League One teams. And so to basically call it after 90 and say we're going straight to shootouts, that kind of levels the playing field just a little bit, which is kind of neat. We'll see if it actually plays out that way. My question for you is, who do you think are the Hounds' like top 3 pen takers?
No, who knows at this point? I mean, I would think. I would overcomplicate it. If I'm Bob, I'm sending Robbie, Danny, Augie to spot, off the top of my head. And then I'm probably the last 2 spots, I'm going, all right, who wants it? I won't see the hunger to be like, all right, who wants the ball? And it's like, all right, if you feel confident taking a PK, like step up, that's probably what I'm doing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that'll be one of those little quirks that, as we'll get into, The past, I think, 3 times that we've played in Detroit, they've all been draws. It was 1-1 and then 0-0 and 0-0. So there's a shot that we're going to see it today. But just an interesting twist if you're watching this game. There's no extra time. It's going to go to pens. Let's talk a little bit about Detroit quickly. So they are on good form. They're 5-1-2. Their only loss has come to Louisville. Their striker, Darren Smith, has 6 goals in 7 matches. So once again, second week in a row, we're seeing a hot striker. Hopefully we can keep him off the board. Statistically, if you try to compare these two teams, they have 5 more goals than we do, but otherwise we're pretty much the same defensively, distribution wise, but they're pretty much the same team. But the interesting thing about Detroit is I think anytime we play each other, you can just throw all those stats out the window because this has sort of developed into a rivalry, and anything can happen in those games. So I guess my question to you is, how do you think that we approach this game? Do you think we change anything based off of what we saw in Loudon? Do you think that we try to rotate guys in? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the I think would be interesting to get Bob's input on or thought on would be how this changes your substitution pattern for a normal cup game. A normal cup game, you get towards 70, 80 minutes. If you're still tied, you go, do we try to win it in the next 10 minutes or do we save a sub and make, 2 subs going into extra time? But you don't have that this time. So do you make your subs at 60, 55 even, and try to get some fresh, try to get that goal, with 20 minutes left rather than waiting until the last 10 minutes knowing you're going to have to go to a shootout anyway. So I think that could be interesting in how we approach it. I'm a little I'm wary about this game. I want to see the Hounds go after this game. I don't want to see a different lineup than what we would see if we were playing Detroit in the league this weekend. I think this game is too important in the sense that, we need to get on good, this game doesn't do anything for us in the league other than if we can get on some good form and beat a team who's in form. That would give us some confidence going into next week playing North Carolina at home on the new turf, and so I want to see us, all right, cool, let's win this game and then come home with some confidence, the new turf, a big, midweek matchup against NYCFC. This is the type of game that could turn a season around if we can put a good result. That being said, Detroit's never fun to play against, and so it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the nation.
We talked a little bit about how Jorge kind of alluded to, maybe some of those guys getting minutes. There's been some rumblings out there that maybe Jagermeister is going to be ready to come back for this one. He was on the bench and Loudon didn't get into the game. Is this a game where you think I personally don't think I start him in this game. You don't expect him to go 90 minutes, but at the same time, to your point, you don't need him to go 90 minutes. Maybe he goes 45 and then you pull him out and put somebody else in. But to your point also, Detroit's tough, man. It's going to be a physical game. And for a guy that's just coming off an injury, this might not be the ideal scenario. Say that Jagermeister is ready for some minutes. How do you think you get him involved?
I think you start him. And the reason being, you might only get 30 minutes out of him, but the game is only going to go 690. And so I think it's a situation where you could put Jackson, Augie. It's a formation and a set of players that Detroit hasn't seen yet this season, doesn't have any tape on, all that kind of stuff. And so do you put him out there and go go all out attack for 15 minutes and just see if you can put a goal on the board early and kind of shut the crowd up and, get the momentum there early. And then after 30 minutes, if he's struggling or whatever, you could pull him and have somebody go 60 on the back end of the game. But it just feels like that's kind of a wild card strategy move of they haven't seen this. There's no tape on it. It's a fresh set of players. And so, if he's healthy, I'd like to see him start, even if he can only go 30 or 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. I think it'll be interesting to sort of see how Bob manages, because like you said, this whole thing with no extra time, it's a whole nother ball game. And the fact that you get 3 points for a win in regular time and 2 points in a shootout, like the whole thing is just kind of crazy. So it's gonna be fun to kind of see how coaches adjust, if they adjust their mentality to doing this versus just being like, well, I'm just, I'm not going to change a ton of stuff. I'm just going to do what I do for normal games or whatever. The one other note is that Luke Biasi did get a red this past weekend, but he is eligible to play this today because the Jagermeister Cup is separate from league play. So I fully expect to see Luke in this match. Yeah, this is going to be a crazy one for sure. Give me your score prediction.
This is one of those games that's like really hard. Do I go with my heart or do I go with my head actually is telling me is going to happen?
Yeah.
And what my head is telling me is going to happen is we're going to lose 2-0 and it's going to be a rough game and we're all going to come out of this weekend feeling pretty frustrated. My heart tells me like we could go to Detroit and and it's like that whole thing of, like you just said, besides if we win in regulation, besides us getting 3 points, that keeps Detroit on 0.
Yeah.
And, it's like if you can get away, like if you can win your 2 games against the USL Championship opponents, it almost doesn't matter at that point what you against Westchester and Portland Hearts of Pine because they're going to beat each other. Rhode Island and Detroit are probably going to beat each other up too. And so also you're like, you can get draws there and be fine, or you can get, shootouts there and be fine. And so I think it just feels like this is a really important game to get on top, but I just don't think we're on the form to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because the difference between winning in regulation and winning in a shootout is massive, because for you, it might be one less point if you're able to win in the shootout, but you're still giving your opponent 1 point. So there's only 1 point separation, which in reality feels kind of fair. If both teams get to a shootout, like cool, good for you. You still get a point. But if you're able to finish it in regular time, you get 3, they get nothing. And like, that's huge in group play like this. So yeah, this is just going to be wild and crazy. I think I agree with you. I would love to see it be a 0-0 or like a 1-1 and go to a shootout just to like see that format and how it plays out. And I think if we're able to drag Detroit to a draw in regulation, I almost feel like based on the form we've been on, based on the form they've been on, like that's a decent result to like get a point out of going to Detroit, getting a point. I would love to see us win it in regulation, but I'm going to predict that it's a draw heading into a shootout. And then I'll say that we win in the shootout. I think, Dick is a good shot stopper. I think he saved a pen or two before. So maybe, but it just, it's going to be crazy, man. It's just, yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I would say, and this is not serious at all, but the USL, whoever schedules for the USL needs to not schedule the Union and the Riverhounds at the same time, all the stinking time. This game, I was so excited because I was like, oh, the Riverhounds are at 4:00. Guess what time the Union are? 4:30. And I still missed the whole Union game because the Union have a weird schedule this weekend. And then it's like in 3 weeks, they had the opportunity to put the Open Cup night, like one game on Tuesday, one game on Wednesday. Both of them are Wednesday at 7:00. I'm like, come on. I just want to watch my teams.
Yeah. Yeah. As you just said, the game is at 4 p.m. It's going to be on ESPN Plus, so it will not be a night game. Yeah, Justin, any kind of final thoughts on this one?
No, this feels important, and I my feelings on must-win games. I don't talk about must-win games until the end of the season, but this is just one of those games that feels important, and it feels like it's a good opportunity to kind of go, Because you're not in a terrible situation if you lose the game. Like you still have 3 games, 2 of them against lower division opponents. Like you're not in a terrible spot if you lose this game. And so I like it feels a little bit like what you have to lose, other than you're a little bit behind in the standings of this, but like what do you have to lose in the sense that if you go to Detroit, shut them up. They've gotten 5 wins on the season. You come in and be like, nope, we're not letting you have another one. Um, and then you can roll into the next weekend at home with some momentum, all that kind of stuff. That just feels so much better to me than not taking this game seriously. I'm like, great, we lost another one. Now we're coming home to North Carolina and nobody feeling confident about that game.
Yeah. Agreed. And I will say, I think Detroit has 5 wins. I think one of them are at home. They've gotten more wins on the road than they have at home. So there is a chance. And maybe they're looking past us a little bit based on how we started things. Who knows? Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. But that is what we think. Let us know what you think. We will be back with the reaction show tomorrow, followed by all of the other shows that we have leading up to the game next week. But hopefully the Hounds can go and get a W, because there is no draw in Detroit tonight. Thanks, everybody. We will be back with more Hounds and Riveters news very, very soon.